coming to you live from my supermarket parking lot because I'm bored sitting in my office desk. Yes, Mars is stationed direct in Gemini. Rebellious Mars is finally direct. Well, what did it do for me? Well, it's like, all right, change it up. get in your car, even though it's certainly easier to be at home, but I just love being here and just doing something different, right? Just a new venue, a new alternative venue. Yes, all right. So I hope everybody's doing well. My name's Irlianna. For those of you who are new to the channel, I practice Hellenistic astrology, and I love mundane astrology as well. But anyway, yeah, Hellenistic blended with the outer planets, and I use whole sign houses. So I hope you guys are doing great. I've got some cool things to talk about. Certainly Mars stationing direct, and also the astrology for this weekend from Sunday the 15th and through January 21st. So let's just dive right in. So first of all, I thought it was really interesting, like within 5 minutes of Mars stationing retrograde, Thursday afternoon Eastern time, it was right almost to 4 p.m. Well, at like 4:01, I get an email from Amazon, and it says Amazon Pharmacy is now open. So Amazon has opened a pharmacy, and I'm like, okay, well, they've taken over everything else, right? But I thought it was interesting because in the moment that happened, of course, Mars stationed direct right on the USA Mars. The USA Uranus. Uranus is about internet, and it's about Uranus and Gemini would be, technology-driven commerce, right? And it's making an exact square with the USA Mars and Neptune. The Neptune transit, Neptune opposition with Mars. Neptune, of course, rules drugs, pharmaceuticals. There it is. Neptune in Virgo, transiting Neptune in Pisces, health and drugs and rock and roll and the AI marketplace for pharmaceuticals. I'm like, okay, this is just perfect example. Anyway, be that as it may, of course, the more interesting conversation is this fallout that's just opening and exploding with Harry's book. There's been moments where I'm like, okay, enough already. Like I used to do book publicity when I started out in the corporate world. Many moons ago. I was working in Madison Avenue, and I did corporate, book publicity. So I know the importance of course, getting on all the major networks and getting your client on all these talk shows. And of course, it's very important and interesting. But there does come a time when I was having my moments like, okay, I love you dearly, and I'm glad you're speaking up, but I'm kind of tired of the narrative. But then I'm like, no, I have to step back, because what is happening here is not just a celebrity tell-all. This is huge. This is about the words that are coming to me is a transfer of consciousness, or certainly a battle going on, and the war of words, right? And he said, she said, and here's siblings. Mars ruled in Gemini. Gemini is about siblings and alternative narratives in the media. And so Harry's version of his story was being told, and the bravery it took and the courage to talk about everything. Look at when he talked about his mother and driving, things we didn't know, right? Driving through the tunnel where she died just to see what that was and what it was for him, and just all these in outrageous truths and things that none of us knew. So Gemini being with Mercury the trickster, and Mercury the one who's, there's certain conversations that were hidden that came to light. Of course, Mercury retrograde bringing it all up in Capricorn, family dynamics and the underbelly of that. I will say this, it's not over, especially because Mercury will go direct this week. It'll station direct at 8 degrees of Capricorn, and so was that on the 18th? And so and just as it's doing that, the sun will be conjunct Pluto. So we're going to be seeing more revelations, more things that were previously hidden around big power players, corporations, right? Capricorn's not just the royal family, although it's a very big example of it. Corporations, bosses, authority figures, and the powers that be. The British royal family and the Vatican are the two longest running institutions on the planet. The Vatican's been around for like 2,000 years. Crazy. And the royal family, I think, what is it, 1,000 years. So you think about it, like, this is, now, have they been shaken up before? Yes, of course. But this is really, it's interesting because where is it taking hold? Pluto just about to change signs into Aquarius. So in the past, when, say, Lady Di came on board and did her, she did that Andrew Morton biography, Diana in Her Own Words, and that was, we're in the Saturn return of that. That was early 1990s, 1992, I think it was. Well, and that was certainly bombshell revelations, but this is even bigger because of the fact that it's we've got all these other players in the mix, Uranus and Taurus, the Saturn-Uranus square that went on, and of course the biggest one of all is that Pluto in Capricorn, ready to make its ingress into Aquarius in just a couple more months. So yeah, this I feel is going to have the fall. We will be dealing with this fallout for a long time. We are certainly going to be seeing, when I think about Pluto hitting Aquarius, just like the peasants storming the Bastille. It's like, okay, why are we funding these kings and queens and let them eat cake when we don't have enough? And I think that you'll start seeing certainly, and any, I'm not just singling out one country or government, but certainly we will start seeing this. It's like, oh my goodness. Why are we funding this royal family hundreds of millions of dollars a year for the taxpayers in Britain that foot the bill? When Margaret Thatcher left office, I learned this, and was it the, I don't know if it was the Harry and Meghan documentary or The Crown, because I've been watching both of them on and off. But one of them said that, when Thatcher left office, she made this like huge sweetheart deal with the royal family that kind of, they had more money than ever. And I guess it was just kind of safeguarding, like, okay, when things go down, like, here, I'm going to give you this big golden parachute kind of sweetheart deal that'll give you lots and lots of money should anything happen. Well, in the years to come. Well, that was very nice of her. And, of course, the British people are still footing the bill, and I think they're just going to start questioning it, as they already have. This book, Spare, Prince Harry's memoir, is kind of really, it's that Uranus and Taurus taking the picnic blanket and throwing it up in the air, and the china and the silver and everything's going everywhere, and that kind of, that conundrum about values. Taurus is about this, what is valuable to us? What is important to us? What is important? What needs to change? And what is old and stuck that is no longer serving? Fascinating. Anyway, but I just want to say too, just getting back to after my Harry Meghan riff, I could have so much more to say, but I want to move on. I want to say, with Mars stationing direct in Gemini, I knew we'd see some outrageous stories. And if you remember when I said when this first went retrograde back in October, so Mars entered the sign of Gemini August 20th, and it went retrograde October 28th. And so I remember saying, you're going to see some outrageous stories about feats, physical feats and athletic feats, and just things around flight. And I think the fastest speed record was broken again. I know it had been in the past, but one of the more interesting ones I saw was this woman who is the tallest woman in the world. She's 7 feet tall, 7'1", and she could never fly on an airplane. She was a young woman, 25. She couldn't fly because of her height, right? Well, Turkish Airlines flew her from like Istanbul to San Francisco, and they took several seats out to accommodate her, and she laid on this like stretcher, and she was so grateful, and it was this amazing, interesting story. But it's power of Mars retrograde in Gemini. Let's rethink Gemini, Mercury. It's about problem solving and solutions. Let's rethink and take things from a different viewpoint, and then in order to solve a problem. So that is something that we can continue to work with. Even though Mars has gone direct, we want to remember that still out of bounds, and all the revelations and understandings that we've come to see and realize in these last several weeks or months can now be used to move forward. So we have this gusto for like getting things done and tackling on challenges and continuing, bravery and courage and initiative. It's like we are finally going to feel this way after all these months of pause or challenge, or rethinking. But anyway, another area where we might be seeing breakthroughs, certainly, Mercury ruling the LGBT community. That's a very strong indicator. And there was a lot of setbacks and challenges with that, with legislation in, the state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis signing like anti-trans legislation. And hello, thank you for that fabulous light in the face, Leo here. But anyway, yeah, LGBT rights and all having been challenged very much, but now the pendulum is swinging forward again. So we could be seeing some resolutions of those things, or rethinking where things had been taken away, that they move forward again in terms of LGBT issues. Certainly the education system as well, initiatives around that. All the media, alternative points of view, and embracing or coming back and saying, the media was, reporting a certain direction on one thing, but now it's like, well, we're switching gears. So we'll be seeing that. One of the things I found fascinating was Eckhart Tolle, talk about Mars not only retrograde but out of bounds. Eckhart Tolle was on Russell Brand's podcast on YouTube. And he was talking about the current situation with the narrative, and of course the complete, dissolution of the collective of humanity into this, delusional consciousness, and how people are becoming aware. And he said, they talk about the Great Reset, but he goes, I really think that the Great Reset that they talk about in the economists and all, there's really another reset that's going on, and it's like the reset of consciousness. And I'm paraphrasing, but I really love that idea, and I'm going to be delving more into that as time goes on with certain guests. So stay tuned. But yes, the great reset of consciousness, and this Mars retrograde in Gemini has given us pause to say, okay, which narrative are we going to follow? Is it the one like the Klaus Schwab? Say that name 10 times fast. Klaus Schwab. Anyway, is that guy, is that what could you go there? Yes, hypothetically you could, but there's a choice. It's like, okay, maybe we need to reset ourselves and our consciousness, not like something on the external. So the fact that Eckhart Tolle, who's always, the most chill spiritual teacher on the planet, that he's talking about these formerly outre subjects, or what subjects you never saw him cover or acknowledge or talk about, kind of dance around them, to have him get on, of all people, Russell Brand's show. Wow, pretty amazing. And so that was another interesting development that happened in Mars retrograde. So anyway, like I said, Mercury, who is in, where Mars is temple, Mercury, who is also, the both of them were retrograde. Now Mars went direct, and then Mercury, whose temple Mars has been residing, will go direct in the sign of Capricorn, also at 8 degrees. Interesting, 8, and 8 is one of Mercury's number in the esoteric tradition. 8 is a Mercury number. So, wow, a lot of Mercury energy here. 8 degrees of Capricorn, stationing direct. He'll come out of it. So things with communication and bonkers, where maybe your boss didn't understand you and you didn't understand your boss, or authority figures, or corporations, politics, governments. Think of that crazy Kevin McCarthy whole shebang that went down earlier in the week with getting the votes to become Speaker of the House. All of that now getting cleared up. As the Sun conjuncts Pluto. So like I said, more secrets and revelations happening. What was the whole thing about discovering Biden confidential files, classified files at Biden's house or residence? There's another example of it. So we're going to be seeing more revelations, things coming out of the shadow. And then when Mercury finishes coming out of its the shadow period of its retrograde, that won't be until February 7th. And when that happens, Mercury will be conjunct Pluto. So basically what we're seeing now this week into next will be, those themes will certainly resonate again early February. Okay, the last two things I want to talk about is the Sun leaves Capricorn, goes into Aquarius on Friday the 20th. It is Aquarius season, so it's all about truth, liberty, democracy, freedom, humanitarianism, being different, embracing diversity, reveling in that. These are all the archetypal themes of the Aquarius season when the sun goes into Aquarius. If you ever notice that every inauguration, regardless of who in the United States, whoever gets inaugurated, whether it be Republican, Democrat, or what have you, we always have our January 20th is always the inauguration date, and that is astrologically 0 degrees of Aquarius. Well, we're a democracy, or at least we're trying to be, or behaving, or trying to behave like one. Sometimes we lose the plot, but anyway, Pluto's coming though. He's got to remind us. But anyway, this is an interesting season because when the sun enters Aquarius, we've got Venus there, so of course Saturn finishing up his 2.5-year reign in his domicile of Aquarius. So you have Sun, Venus, and Saturn. So this is an interesting kind of farewell, because this is the final Aquarius season when Saturn's in domicile, in its domicile of Aquarius. So we won't see that for 28 to 30 years. And we also have, of course, this new moon too, which follows the very next day, Saturday, January 21st. We have the new moon at 1 degree of Aquarius, and that'll be again the final new moon. So it's kind of like this victory lap, and with Venus there, it's like showing like what kind of things are possible when people come together, with over ideas about freedom and being unique and unity consciousness, and what great things can be accomplished for our society. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be that final new moon in the final Aquarius season with Saturn in domicile. And I think too, that's a real moment for like AI and technology, because if you look back in the previous cycles of Saturn in Aquarius, going back to 1993-94, that's when we had the World Wide Web, what they called it at the time, the information superhighway. And then going back another turn of the cycle, it was the early 60s. It was this USA space program, the Mercury and Gemini astronauts, Alan Shepard and all those guys who eventually, of course, paved the way for the moon landing. So the Saturn in Aquarius, that hope of a new future emboldened by technology, like send somebody to the moon. So all of that promise of like this quote newer, better future that is powered by technology, you can see this playing out not only then, but then with the AI World Wide Web, and now as Pluto enters the sign of Aquarius in a couple of months, again, this is a huge theme about the World Wide Web and AI and smart devices and all of that stuff that starts to really come into focus. So it's another iteration of that. So this particular Aquarius season we're very heightened about these things. The future of AI, how much of that is intrusion? Does it make us slaves? What are we becoming a slave to? So these are obviously huge, conversations. We're going to be delving more deeply into this over the next few weeks and months. So definitely stay tuned. But anyway, yeah. So the new moon, a couple of things. The new moon's in the sign of Aquarius, so it's Saturn's house, and it's conjunct a fixed star called Altair, which is the eagle, and this is a very considered a beneficial fixed star, and it really speaks to hardiness, courage, generosity. Mars is doing its thing, moving forward in the sign of Gemini, and so fresh new ambition around ideas and directions. So I think that this is very much a potent new moon, and I will say we're finally going to feel like, yay, it's the new year, because of Mars and Mercury being retrograde at the beginning of the year of January 1st. It's like we really weren't feeling it, but now we will, especially with Jupiter in Mars's temple in Aries. It's like, oh dude, Mars went direct, well now all hell breaks loose. Here we go, right? Optimism on steroids. Let's do it. Let's think big, concept big, right? Everything Jupiterian is like the horse. I think of the horse in one of those stalls at the racetrack when the door, ding, the bell goes up and it's like, boom, come tearing out of those metal stalls. So I think that's certainly the potential here, that, and we're all going to be really be feeling that. So that's all I have for you for this particular podcast. I am so grateful to be here assisting you with all of this news and fun stuff. And even if it's in my car, at least nobody honked their horn yet. Oh, thank you for keeping your lights on. Wait, thank you, ma'am. Oh, she's getting out of her car. I'm about to lose light. I gotta go. All right. Mwah. Love you all. I'll see you next time. This is StarSound Speaks, Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Astrology. Thank you all for listening. Bye for now.